Welcome, welcome, welcome to Five Friday Feedback. You are in for such a treat. We're going to be recapping our episode from Monday, where we're talking about the year-end financial checklist to set yourself up for 2025. In addition to that, we have a fun viewer mailbag of a kind that might have screwed himself for the rest of his life with a car payment. I don't know. Dominic hasn't read it to me yet, so I'm excited to hear that. And we're going to finish off with win of the week. So, Dominic, how was your week thus far?
Oh, it's been great. It's been great. I took what you said about buying toys and whatnot. I went and got myself a little Lego set. Nothing too crazy. No Venator or no, nothing crazy. Just a small little thing. So appreciate you on that. That was definitely not the moral of the story. But if you did, go back and watch Monday's podcast. Check out what I'm talking about. And you'll know the rest of what I had to do to get that. Right? It wasn't just getting that toy. It was also had two other things a part of it. So go back and check it if you want to be curious and a little sleuthy about it. But my week's been good. My week has been very good. Glad it's Friday. Excited to get on with today's episode and a little bit of a recap. I will say, a Five Friday this week, like you said, it's a doozy. It is a doozy. And I am excited to read it, but we got to do our Monday recap first. So let's get right into it.
Yeah, let's get into that. So what we talked about on Monday's podcast was all about the year-end checklist, making sure that we set ourselves up for a good 2025 by ensuring that we close out 2024 the right way. So we went through, and I really gave what I feel is quite a definitive list. And it was actually quite a long list of things now looking back on it. And I do realize that. So it's not saying that you need to get this entire list done today. My family's over, Chris. We're trying to do Thanksgiving, Christmas, all this stuff is happening all simultaneously. And now you're asking me to run through a financial checklist. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you work on one thing a day, get 1% better. That's the way to set yourself up. If you don't get to all of it this year, let's try to make it a little bit better next year. But in our first segment, we talked about financial review and planning. Yes. And the scariest thing that I told people they're going to have to do, there's actually two scary things. But the first one was, I need you to review your budget and I need you to review your income. So we need to check to see how much money have we spent in the last year, give or take, or maybe month, whenever you started tracking. And then is that in line with the amount of income that we had? And is that in line with the goals that we set for ourselves in 2023? Ideally, we set our goals in 2023. If we didn't, we're going to set it up so that next year when we have this isn't going to be like a new thing where we're like, what? I didn't know this was happening. It happens every year.
Yep. Yeah. And just because this is a year-end checklist, right? You should be knowing how much you're bringing in every month and how much you're spending every month. So just because it's, end of the year doesn't mean that, this is the only time of the year I should be checking. It's like, no, and no. You should be checking it every month, maybe a few times a month, just to make sure that you're not getting overcharged. Sometimes we have too many subscriptions. Sometimes we're spending way too much money. Sometimes we're not spending enough money. That's really rare though. But I would recommend we do this more on a monthly basis, but this is for the whole year. So let's continue diving into it. We talked a little bit about the review, like you were just saying, Chris. Please continue though. I was enjoying that. I was getting into a trance remembering Monday's pod.
No, it's good. It's just important to make sure that we have our goals. So maybe at the beginning of 2024, we said like, hey, I'm assuming I'm going to make $100,000 this year. It's now month 12. Are we sitting at around, $92,000? Because if we are, then hey, we're pretty much on track. Or are we sitting at $50,000 and we have a month to eke out another $50,000 in order to stick with our spending plan and our income? So just make sure those things are in track. Ideally, we would have known this way back in freaking February or July or August. But if we're here now, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The best next time is right freaking now. So let's start to get ahead of it. The next thing we have to do after we reviewed our budget and our spending plan and how much money we brought in, because remember, the path to financial independence is how much money you make minus how much money you spend equals that driver to financial independence, that gap if you were. The next thing after we're done with that, though, is we need to start thinking about our taxes. And I know when I say that, everyone's like, shut the windows, close the shades, I'm going to hide under a blanket. Don't talk about taxes around me. And I'm exactly the same way. There's a reason I pay a CPA an ungodly amount of money to do my taxes, because every year I would sit at my table and scream at my computer as I went through the H&R Block TurboTax little thing. So now I pay somebody to not have that frustration in my life. But when it comes into December, we just need to be so sure that we are in line with the withholdings that we've done this entire year. So you can go on to smartasset.com. You can Google it. Hey, I make this much money on average a year gross. How much should I be paying in taxes roughly? And again, it's rough. And see, am I in line? Am I paying roughly that amount? If I made $100,000 this year, I go on Google and it says you should be paying around, I don't know, $20,000, $30,000 in all of taxes. And you look at all of your taxes that had been withheld, and it's like $60. You're like, all right, I screwed up somewhere, or my company screwed up somewhere. I need to get this fixed right now so that come April, I'm not like, oh, where do I come up with $30,000? That's what you never want to find yourself in the situation of. You don't want a huge tax return, but you also don't want to owe a bunch of money. You want to be somewhere in the middle of there. My goal is to receive a tax return of $100. That's my goal.
Yeah.
You rarely ever hit it, but that's my goal.
No, I think that's a smart goal. And there's reasons behind that, but we're not going to get into that too in detail because let's be honest, nobody wants to hear about taxes. And hopefully 50% of our viewers didn't drop off when we said the evil T word, aka taxes. So yeah, taxes suck. Got to deal with them. Only two things guaranteed are death and taxes. So with that being said, let's continue getting on with that so we can plow through it as fast as freaking possible. What else did we talk about when it comes to taxes?
Nothing more about taxes from this section. So we won that part. After that, though, once we have made sure that we're on track for paying the right amount of taxes this year, and that could mean at the end of the year, we're either decreasing the amount of tax withholding or maybe dramatically increasing it. Hopefully it's the latter or the former. And then the next thing we're going to do is do our goal evaluation, review the progress we made thus far in the year of 2024. Hopefully we had a goal from 2023. Are we in line with that? Did we hit it? Did we surpass it? Did we not hit it? Whatever it is, now we need to set a goal for 2025. And with that, I want the goal to be a SMART goal. And I don't mean that it's a SMART goal and that it's an intelligent goal. No, I mean that it is an acronym. It is specific. It is measurable. It is, what was it? Attainable? I can't remember what it is now.
Dude, now you're catching me off guard. You're throwing me off.
I got it. I just remembered it. It's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
That's it.
So
that's it.
What that means is we're not going to be saying, I want to be good with money in 2025. I want to have a better financial future than I did now. Those things might be good. Yeah, they're setting you off in the right direction, but they are not specific. They're not measurable. They're not time-bound. They're nothing. I mean, I guess they are time-bound because you're saying in 2025, but you really want to have specific goals here because the more specific, the better. And then also, once you have that big, hairy, audacious goal, let's chunk it up into smaller little pieces and celebrate those little wins along the way. Because if you say, I want to save $10,000 this year, well, if it takes you the whole year to make that $10,000, you fail like you're a failure the entire year. But if you say, hey, in month one, I just saved $1,000. I am 10% of the way there. Next month, $2,000, and I'm going to go get myself an ice cream. I'm going to take my wife out to dinner. I'm going to do whatever to celebrate these little wins. That is what is so needed on this path to financial independence because we are not robots. We're humans. We have emotions, and we need to feel like we're validated in this pursuit because no one else is doing this.
No, I agree 100%. I firmly believe that in order to live a more fulfilling life, you got to have goals. Right? You got to have something you're working towards. Right? You're not just waking up, going to work, coming home, going to bed. Right? There's got to be more to life. And I think the SMART goals definitely, they help frame it. And they help, it's like the difference between going out and running 26 miles or going out and running a marathon, right? I could go run 26 miles right now and I come home, I'm like, well, that was fun. Or I could go out and go at mile 1, people are cheering me on. Mile 2, people are cheering me on. Mile 3, cheering me on, and the marathon's way more fun, right? So I think it's all about having checkpoints and, like Chris said, creating SMART goals, making sure they're time oriented. It's not like, well, I'm going to be financially free. Oh, when? How? With who? Right? Those important questions. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. The SMART, I don't know who came up with this genius acronym, but we appreciate you.
Yeah, we appreciate you. I was thinking about that when you were saying having a goal that's more specific. If you were going to say I'm going to go out and run 26 miles. Mm-hmm. Well, now there's an end point, there's a definitive start point. Well, you say, I'm just going to go out and run as far as I want. I feel that majority of people are going to run probably a few miles and be like, I'm done. Like I ran as far as I can. Now there's some people that are psychopaths that are going to go and run 40 miles, 80 miles. Yeah, for sure. But a majority of us are going to be like, I'm going to run as far as I can. And you're going to make it a mile or two and be like, I'm done. But if you say, I'm going to run 26 miles, there's a way better chance you're actually going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And same thing
It's
with
so,
your finances.
it's so true. It's so true. It made me laugh inside. It's like, yeah, only a psychopath leaves an open-ended goal like that. Like, I'm just gonna run
Until I die. Like,
until I die, until my feet break and my liver fails, and this will be my final transmission. It's like, goodness gracious, calm down, chill out. Like, yeah, no, I agree. You gotta have that goal. You gotta have a cap on it, right? I also would say, we didn't really talk about this last podcast, right? But it's so important to have checkpoints along the way, right? We talked about that to your goal, but also start to think what happens after your goal. Because a lot of people, they reach their goal and they have no idea. Well, now what? Now what? I'm not hungry. It's like those people who say their whole life they wanted to be in the NFL. They fought, they clawed, they get there, finally get to the NFL. Now they want to relax. Now you want to relax? So I think it's important to have hard goals that don't move, right? Don't change the goal, change the effort. Change something else, but don't change the goal, right? But once you accomplish the goal, I would already have something behind that once you accomplish it, right? You don't want to accomplish it and then like get to it. Be like, well, now what? Right? Because that's a really, it kills all your momentum, right? So be thinking of the life after your goals, success. And I would also use that as a tool to motivate you if you have trouble with motivation. And I know we're getting a little bit off topic here, but if you can imagine what life would be like after your goal is complete, you can kind of get a taste of that, right? How can you be addicted to something you've never tasted? Right?
Yeah, I think so many people, they think like once I reach my financial goal, I'll finally be happy. I'll finally achieve it. And more money, or money really is just the great facilitator and the great exacerbator. It facilitates your ability to live your life on your terms, but it also exacerbates whatever's already there. So if you're an unhappy person and you believe once I have more money, I will finally be happy, you'll have the ability to facilitate, have more happiness, but it's going to exacerbate your unhappiness. And so many people they think about like, oh, if once I had $1 million, I had $1 billion, whatever freaking number you want to say your number is. Once I have that, I'll finally be able to achieve happiness. But happiness is not a location. It's not a destination. Happiness, which I think everyone is really striving for, is a choice that you make every single day. We have one purpose in this life from a biological evolutionary lens, and that is to make people that have people. Make people that make other people, to have kids that have kids. That is our goal. That doesn't mean you have to be happy on the way there. That doesn't mean that you need to be financially independent. You have one drive. That's to make people that make people. So you need to make sure that once you reach that financial independence, that you're not thinking like, all right, now I've reached enlightenment, because now it's just going to be a brand new day with a little bit more money in your bank account. So figure out what is it that I want to dedicate my life to when I actually reach that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just want to retouch on what you just said right there. Happiness is a choice. And I think the lack of happiness often comes with the lack of perspective, right? I think, and I believe that when you have the wrong perspective on life, you can never be happy. And I'm not saying people who say, the glass is half empty aren't happy people. I'm sure they can be, right? But what I am saying is that you woke up today and you might not value your life, but your life does have value. You might have woken up with 2 parents in your life. Maybe not. You might have woken up with all your limbs. Maybe not. You might have woken up healthy. Maybe you can walk. And it's that perspective that can help really change what happiness is for you. And one of the things we also talked about on Monday's podcast was donating your time, donating your money. Right? When you help people who are less fortunate, you see what sadness can look like. You see how good you really have it, right? And it changes your perspective. Hopefully, it's not a fleeting moment for you. Hopefully, it sticks with you. I know when I donated my time to help people in need, and I'm talking in need. I'm not talking like, that guy can get a job. Like, no, I'm talking about like, there's no one coming to help them. Like that kind of need. It really changes your perspective on life. So I don't know if we need to, I don't know. I highly recommend you guys going and donating some of your time to help better the community.
I would agree with that, and I agree with that. So maybe we can go ahead and skip the charitable donation because that was, I think, already hit the nail on the head. One thing that you said in there that really kind of touched upon to me is you were talking about happiness, it being the choice that you make, and you can make a different choice. And I know that sounds easy for us just to sit here and say like, oh yeah, just choose to be happy. And I wish it was like that. So right now I'm actually reading a book. I'm about, I don't know, 50-60% of the way through it. It's Own Your Past, Change Your Future by Dr. John Deloney. And one of the things I got to last night is he kind of lays out a very simple way to change the decision to be happy or to change the decision to be whatever it is. And what he says is the first thing we need to do is we need to change our perspective. And when in the story, what he talks about is, or in the book, he talks a lot about stories. We're always telling ourselves a story. And you can look at the stories of your past, and from whatever way you want to look at the perspective, you can see two different things. I could look back on my past and see times where I was maybe not treated well, right? Or maybe someone thought I was stupid. And I could look back at that and be like, wow, like look at that person treated me like I'm stupid. How stupid am I? Or I could look at that exact same situation and say, wow, how sad that this person was so saddened by themselves, or so like fearful that they were never going to make something of themselves that they decided to call a kid stupid. Like I feel bad for that person because that kid wasn't stupid. He was just trying to figure things out. So first thing is changing the perspective. The second thing is changing your actions today. And then once you change your perspective, once you change your actions, the third thing we're going to start to do is change our thoughts. But too many people skip to the end result and they say, I want to be happy. I want to change my thoughts. But they refuse to look back on the stories they're telling themselves, which is the perspective, and they refuse to change their actions. And they just hope that their thoughts are going to magically one day feel better. And that's just unfortunately not the way the world works. And all of these 3 steps are really freaking hard. But each one of those steps are a choice that you get to consciously make every day. I don't know what your stories are. You might have had the worst upbringing imaginable. And it is your chance today to change the perspective you have on it, to change the actions that you do today, and to live better thoughts, a better mindset.
Absolutely. And that book, again, just so people can take notes, maybe they want to check it out themselves. What was the name and author of that book?
Own Your Past, Change Your Future by Dr. John Deloney. It's been really, really good. And for someone like me who like talks in stories and like I think in stories very, that's just the way I've always kind of thought. Kind of like the Joseph Campbell. Like Joseph Campbell has a very big impact on my thought process of how life works.
Yeah.
The way that he talks about stories and like how you can look back and it's all about the story you're telling yourself. And like you can watch your life as a movie or break it up into chapters in a book. And the way that you want to look at that chapter is going to change how you're going to impact it because your body is keeping score and it's remembering all these little things, even though consciously you may not remember it. There's a reason that when I get a knock on the door, I freak out internally.
Yeah.
And like, while it may take a lot of time in like therapy or meditation or whatever to figure out why do you fear that knock at the door? My body remembers that and my body goes into fight or flight immediately. Even though consciously I know like, oh, there's a reason for that. It's because I feared when my dad was away on deployment that knock on the door, 2 knocks, meant that there's someone sitting there with a flag. And that scared the hell out of my mom, which got passed down to me. But I can change the perspective, change the action, eventually change the thought. It's not easy. I still deal with it. But I know the recipe to get better. And everyone has their things. I have a bunch of things, and that's okay. That's part of being human.
Yeah. And it's crazy to even like say like, well, that's okay. Like that should be societally understood. Like, I don't know why, I don't know where this perception, excuse me, hit my microphone. I don't know where this perception of it's not okay to be not okay. Like it's okay to not be okay, right? That's totally okay. We all go through something. And once you start realizing that everybody in life, no matter how much you look up to them or how much you look down to them, everybody is going through something. Everybody is suffering with something, right? You know, I'm suffering with something. Chris is suffering with something. Heck, Donald Trump's suffering with something. Kamala Harris is suffering with something. You know, people are suffering with something. Right? Nobody is unique enough to where everything's okay, right? And you said something in there that kind of brought about a thought process. I just wanted to go over it real quick. And you're saying how you look back on things and how, like, say, like a teacher calling a kid dumb, right? It's something no student should ever have to go through, no teacher should ever say. Knowing where you are now and knowing how far you've come now, I don't believe we could understand how, like, if you climbed a mountain to where you are today, I don't think we could perceive how low down on the mountain, how far down on the mountain you have to go to insult a child in their most impressionable stage. So it's almost like you said, it's all about how you look at it, but going a little bit deeper, going a little bit further, it's like, I pray for that teacher because that's some very deep trauma that they're dealing with, right? That they're bestowing on kids, right? I pray that they find enlightenment, work through their troubles. Because I know you would never do something like that, right? I would never do something like that. So what kind of person would do something like that? Are they an evil person by nature, or are they a broken person by experience?
Yeah. And remember that everyone thinks they're the hero of their own story. Everyone is perceiving that they're in the right. So sometimes when you see someone making a decision that you're like, I can't even begin to conceive of a situation where I would do that, there is a thought process, something going on in that person in which they think they are in the right, in which they are the hero of this story. So when you see a Karen in a store freaking the hell out on a cash register for not accepting an expired coupon or something like that, yeah, you can look at that person and be like, wow, that's a lot. But I always look at that person, I'm like, it must be hell to live in your brain. Like, it just, like, I feel, yeah, I'm annoyed by you. Like, yeah, you are an annoying person. I get that. And also, it must be just terrible. You know, we were going to go to this really nice hotel, right?
Mhm.
And we were about to go into the hotel, and we were looking at the reviews to see, like, should we book this hotel? Should we not? And one of the reviews was, me and my husband, we went to this hotel and we told them that it was going to be our anniversary, and they refused to give us an upgrade, but they gave an upgrade to another couple who were celebrating their honeymoon. And then I was like, it's a 1 star. And I was like, what the like, why would you give them 1 star for that? And then in there afterwards, I read more and it said, like, we're a gay couple. And the hotel made a decision to give this honeymoon couple, who was a straight couple, an upgrade, while they looked at us and said no, because we're a gay couple. And, you know, are there people that are going to not like other people just because they are quote unquote different? Yeah, 100%. But what kind of a hell must it be that you're going around looking for reasons that people don't like you? Objectively, I think we can all say that a honeymoon is of higher level importance than an anniversary.
100%.
Additionally, like, we don't know the story behind this upgrade. Like, the person could have reached out years in advance versus this person who just said it, like, while they were at the freaking counter. Like, there's so much stuff, but if you want to look at it negatively, if you want to look at it from the perspective of everyone wants to get me, then your actions are going to be in line with that. And your thoughts are going to be in line with that. So you need to go back, you need to fix your perspective.
Yeah. And I hate to keep reusing the same line that you said, something that kind of triggered something in my mind, and we're going down a chain, right? But I think this is an important conversation. I think the conversation we're having is more important than the financial review. And this is something that, you know, this conversation can help impact not just 2025, but many years down the line. That these are the type of conversations that are important to have with people you respect, with people who have been through the troubles, who have been through the struggles, been through the fire. And if you're not having conversations like this, at least you can do is listen to them. Maybe you can agree, maybe you can disagree. And you said something that I thought was so interesting. People think that they're the hero of their story, right? You've got the hero, you've got the guide, you've got the villain, and there's a fourth one, correct?
Yeah, the one that most people play, which is the victim.
Yeah. So everybody thinks they're the hero. Everybody plays the victim. But I think everybody is the villain of their own story. And I think, truthfully, people are more often the villain of their own story than the hero. By a lot. By a lot. Who's stopping you from getting healthy? You know, who's stopping you from reaching those financial goals? Who's stopping you from learning that language or becoming that version of yourself, becoming that hero version? Because we all imagine the hero version, the version that's, wow, I'm so much stronger than everybody. I'm just so much stronger than who I used to be. That's a better line of thought. You know, I'm the hero, right? Yeah, because if you're comparing your strength or you're comparing yourself to other people, you're gonna lose that game every time. Right?
Yeah, there's somebody else out there. There is some freak of nature who is out there.
Yes. Yeah. Like I saw a video yesterday about a 350-pound dumbbell, like the world's strongest man. Like he's the only one who can lift it. I'm like, cool. Like I can't do that. So that's fine. So I've lost. So whatever. But it's more important to compare yourself to who you were. And I was doing a year-end checklist in my own mind while I was in the shower today, getting ready for today's podcast. And I was like, in some ways, I'm worse off than I was a year ago. In some ways, I'm better off than I was a year ago. How does that make me feel? Am I a failure? Just a guy living life. Just a guy living life. So I think it's so important to understand that if your life is a movie, you're the villain. Sometimes it feels good to be the villain. It always feels good to be the villain, really. But you're feeding into that darkness, right? I don't think you can be happy long-term being the villain of your own story. You can only be happy by becoming the hero and rising above the challenges that you face. Maybe you were born with a learning disability. Maybe you were born into a broken home. Maybe you were born into a bad circumstance. Maybe you weren't, though. Maybe you were born into a good home and you should have been good at everything because you had all the tools and you're still not successful. Everybody's dealing with something. And I think that we need to cut everybody a little bit of slack and try and understand life through their eyes. Even though I don't know what it was like for Chris to grow up in the way he grew up, and he doesn't know what it was like to grow up for me. So it's perspective and kindness and really being and understanding who you are and where you come from.
Yeah. And I think it's so difficult because nowadays we live in a society of people who are like, well, you don't have it as bad as this person.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always comparing ourselves to somebody else's worst day or someone else's best day. And the worst pain you've ever felt is the worst pain you've ever felt. You can't conceive of a pain worse than what you've been through. So don't tie what you've been through to somebody else. Don't compare your things to somebody else. And I think we talked a little bit earlier about like, why do we have to justify things being okay? And I think it all comes down to fear and shame. Fear that we are not enough. Shame that we are not enough. Because we look around, especially in this like day and age of social media, of everyone who's putting their perfectly curated lives in front of us, and we're comparing our insights. Because I know my thoughts. I know how dark it gets. I understand all these things. And I get to look at this other person who I don't know what's going on. I don't know what thoughts going on. I just see their outsides. And I'm comparing every piece of turmoil and shit that's down to me against what I see against them. And my story of them is they must all be happy. And my story of me is I know the real story. It's not very good over here. But this is something you can also use to your advantage. When someone leaves a negative comment, when you hear somebody who says like, oh, what a dummy, they did this, this, or this. What I always do to myself is I go, man, they're upset about that. Imagine if they knew the stuff that I don't like about myself. That would be real cannon fodder that they could use against me. Instead, they're using that he slurs a little bit or that he has, dyslexia. Like now imagine the things that like I'm actually ashamed of about myself. At least they don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know these deep, dark secrets.
Yeah.
Until I'm willing to share them. And then that by sharing them, I give away all of its power. it can't be used against me because I have freely given it away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Where do you want to go from there? Who do you want
Let's
to be?
go back.
You know?
Yeah.
I was like, I transitioned back to the podcast and I was like, I kind of want to go back into philosophical Dom. And I'm like, nah, we got to get back to the pod. So yeah, where do we want to go from there? Where do we want to go from there, Chris?
Next thing we're going to do, after we do our review and planning, let's go ahead and we'll speed this up a little bit. Perfect. The next thing we want to do is we want to do our retirement and health check. And what that means is in 2024, we have the ability to max out our 401k. We have our ability to max out our HSA, our IRA. We have the ability to max all of these accounts out. I will add a note that for the IRA, you have until the tax deadline, which is April 15th, 2025. But for your HSA, your health savings account, and your 401k, if you don't know what those mean, go back and listen to Monday's pod. We talked all about it. You have to contribute the max amount of money, which for the 401k is $23,000. For the HSA, $4,150. You have to contribute that by December 31st. You can't put it in January 1 and say, I want that account for 2024. That's just not the way the world works. Additionally, if you have a flex savings account, you need to use all that money up before December 31st because that is a use it or lose it system.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep her going. I like the speed at which we're working. Yeah, let's do it.
We'll keep it going. Next thing, we've already talked about charitable donations and making sure that we're giving our time, giving our money to look for anything that we can do to help people and help people first and foremost. But if you are doing that, let's try to maximize it. Try to get any relevant paperwork you might need for taxes and stuff like that. Remember, that is not the point of giving. After that, we want to do an insurance review. Look at your update. Make sure your life insurance is updated, your health, your auto, your home. And please be sure that the beneficiaries are correct in all of these things. If the beneficiaries are wrong on the life insurance and your trust or your estate plan has something different, the life insurance policy supersedes the trust. Your IRA, your 401k, the beneficiaries on there supersedes the trust. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think like, no, the trust is the ironclad thing. Well, if you have the life insurance, the IRAs, those PODs and TODs, pay on death and trade on or transfer on deaths, those supersede a trust. So you need to make sure those beneficiaries are taken care of because you can go and update them right now and then you can change them again tomorrow. Doing that in a trust is not how that works. You have to go to an attorney and get it all ratified, which is quite a bit of money and time. After that, we're going to move on to our safety nets and investments and make sure that we have an adequate amount of savings in an emergency fund. And what is an adequate amount is going to change depending to you, our listener, myself, and Dominic. We can all have different levels of emergency funds, and that's part of the game. So much of personal finance is much more personal than it is finance. And the way that I always try to do it is do the gut check. Can I sleep well at night knowing that I have this amount of money in the bank if I woke up tomorrow and I didn't have a job? If I woke up tomorrow and I couldn't get out of bed for some reason? And this is going to be completely dependent on you, on your ability to get another job, on your ability on your spouse to get a job, if you have dependents depending on you, all of these things. This is where the personal finance of it comes in. Mm-hmm. Additionally, we want to do a portfolio review, make sure that we're rebalancing our investments, consider tax loss harvesting to offset any gains. Ideally, that's not what we're doing, but know that that is a tool in your tool belt.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then from there, we're going to make sure that we do a debt check. If we have debt, we need to make sure that we are taking care of it. And I'm going to make sure that we preface it. If you have credit card debt, that is a hair on fire situation. If you have a mortgage, if you maybe have a car loan, if you have student loans, should we have a process and a plan of how we're going to get rid of that? Yes. But that does not mean that we are burning the boats and like, this is the most important thing. So many people think in order for me to invest, in order for me to think about even contemplating saving for retirement, I first need to be 100% debt free. And that's just not the way it works. Maybe credit card debt is the thing where you're like, I need this gone before I can start thinking about savings, like additional savings outside of like match from a 401k. We've done a whole podcast on order of operations of finance. You can go back and listen to that. You can book a time with a financial advisor. You can do whatever it is you need for yourself. But I want you guys to figure that out. Again, we've already talked about estate planning. Update your wills, update your beneficiaries, look at that stuff. If you don't have a will or a trust, your state has a will for you. Look into your state and see, are you comfortable with that? And if you're not, you're going to have to go and make your own. Because there are some weird things in weird states where they do weird stuff. And maybe you're not comfortable with that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. You definitely want to have your affairs in order for your family, and you don't want the government deciding where your assets go, because
Yep.
chances are, well, that's going to take a long time, longer than you might think. And maybe you're thinking, well, I'll be dead, so doesn't matter. One, that's horrible. Two, you're gonna wanna make sure that you know where your assets are going, right? You don't want cousin Billy or cousin Joe to get something that you don't want to give them, right? So make sure that you're actually getting all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Trust over will. It depends on each
It depends on the
circumstance.
situation.
Yeah.
But the big thing that you set up a trust or will, you set up an estate plan, not for you. You're dead. You're exactly right. Who cares? You're dead. You set it for the loved ones that are sitting around the table with you. You set it for the people in your household so that they don't have to go through pain and suffering, because they're already going through pain and suffering at your loss, that you're not going to be there for them to have to execute whatever this plan is.
Mhm.
Don't make them also have to deal with cousin Billy, who's saying that, oh no, he said he was going to leave everything to me, to deal with the state saying, no, I don't think you deserve this. Lay out how you want things to go. And of course, you can't dictate everything from the grave. You can't control money from the grave, but you can set up systems and processes to try to make sure that things flow as smoothly as possible.
Yep.
The final thing that I want to talk about is making sure that we do a credit check. This is our additional bonus on Monday. You have the ability to go to annualcreditreport.com every 12 months, and you're able to pull a free credit report on all 3 of the major bureaus. I want you to go ahead and pull that report. Don't just look at the number. Yes, look at the number and say, like, if it's good or is it bad? How do I feel about that number? But then look on page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, and see, why is that number that number? Look for your inaccuracies and look for things that we can improve on in 2025 so that we can ideally build this credit up. Because yes, maybe a credit score isn't the most important thing in the world, but I disagree with Dave Ramsey when he says that a credit score is an I love debt score. You need a good credit score if you want to qualify for some jobs, if you want to be able to get a mortgage, if you want to be able to rent apartments, if you want to get a good car loan. Not everyone has the ability. Most people don't have the ability to walk in off the street and drop straight cash for a house. You need a credit score to do things. You just do. I'm not saying that's the way the world should work, but that is the way the world does work. So let's operate in a place of reality rather than just saying, like, it's not fair. Stop complaining, start taking action, take control of your perspective, take control of your actions, take control of your thoughts.
It's all about accountability. It's all about accountability. I love that. I love that. Well, with that being said, guys, that is our recap with a bit of psychology, a bit of mindset training, if you will.
Philosophy.
Philosophy, indeed, indeed. You know, we love philosophy over here. That's why you guys keep coming back and coming back and coming back, because we're not just finance. We talk a lot about the mind, the habits, and really the stuff that goes on behind the action, right? If you can understand why the action is happening, then you can better understand the why, right? So with that being said, I think it's time for, I would never publicly say my favorite time of the week, right? You know, I would never publicly say that, but you can insinuate these things. But yeah, it's my favorite time of the week. It is 5 Friday Feedback. So welcome to 5 Friday Feedback Viewer Mailbag. This is where we bring a letter up and I read it and we talk about it. It's usually pretty juicy, and today is no different, right? So today's letterhead is, did I screw myself with this new car? Maybe some of you have been there. Maybe some of you are looking to get a new car. Well, this is a doozy. So let me get started. Let's get right into this one. So howdy, Fi Guys. Howdy. Reading as the viewer, obviously. For the past few months, I've been paying around $468 a month for my car loan. And on top of that, another $300 a month in insurance.
Holy shit.
Yowzers. That's $768 a month going towards my 2024 Toyota Camry. Come on down. An expense that's starting to be weighing a little bit heavy on me. Understandably so.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what their income is. You know, maybe they're making 10K a month. Maybe they're rolling big. I don't know, right? But if you're writing in and it's weighing heavy on you, chances are it's soaking up a good.
It's usually a situation.
Yeah.
We don't hear from many people that are like, hey, my life's going well.
Yeah, send us some letters about that, guys. I would really love that. I might not choose it for viewer mailbag, but it would at least warm my soul. So that's good. The interest rate on this loan is about 16%, which, to be honest, feels like a punch in the gut every time I make a payment. Yeah, that whistle, perfectly timed. My parents have been incredibly kind in helping me pay the loan, with the loan payments, that is. And let's see, that only makes me feel worse about the decision I made. Okay, so they're getting a little bit of help from the family, the parents, because it's such a large burden, right? Kind parents,
Boy.
we love that. Definitely don't want to take advantage of them. Right? I don't know how long this loan term is. If I was a parent, I don't think I would want to commit to helping you on your financial mistake for the next 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know. Let's continue.
Yeah. There's a lot there. That 16% interest rate is crazy. That's credit card level interest rate, first off. And then spending $768 a month. His insurance is $300. Like, he's got to be like either like 18 years old or like he's getting in accidents like every 5 minutes. Like that's really high.
Yeah. Like a $300, that is a car payment.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a car payment, right? Put down $4,000 on this car, and looking back, I wish I had used that money differently. Could have gotten a decent car with just cash, with the savings that I had saved. Something reliable that wouldn't have come as a burden of a loan. In the moment, I feel like I had no choice. Oftentimes, when you feel like you have no choice, you need to give it at least 24 hours. Really step back, look at it from a third-person perspective. Because usually, if the walls are closing in, you're probably missing something.
Or you're going to make a bad decision because you're now under distress. So what I would always do is have a plan of action before you even walk into that freaking dealership. Because how many of us, we maybe, let's lower the stakes substantially.
I know exactly where you're going, and I love this analogy.
Let's lower the stakes. If you walk into Target right now and you say, I have a budget of $100, you have a plan, and you walk inside there and you see those new tablecloths or new Le Creuset set or whatever BS my wife decides to come home with today. And you walk in and you see that and you're like, I need that. And now you see the sale over it, like sale ending tomorrow. Now all the decisions are pointing you towards, I need to make this decision right now, or I'm going to lose this Le Creuset set or whatever it is. If you don't have a plan, you're going to fall to your emotions. If you fall to your emotions, most likely you're going to make a bad financial decision.
As I go into the grocery store hungry.
Did I go the direction that you thought I was?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. That's exactly where. Yeah, you got to go in with a plan and stick to your plan. Right? Stick to your plan. If you don't like what you're hearing, walk away.
Yep.
Walk away.
There are times where I will go to Costco and like, you go in through the front and you're supposed to do the food court last. But if I'm hungry, I'm going to walk through the checkout line and I'm going to go eat first. And then I'm going to go walk because I know if I don't, I'm going to leave Costco with a bunch of BS.
100%. 100,000,000%. Plus, honestly, when you're walking around, last time I went to Costco, I got a chicken bacon. I was walking around, I'm chomping on my chicken bacon, walking through the store. People were like, oh no, I want the chicken bacon. I was like, you should have got one first. Anyway, the reason I ended up in this situation is a bit more complicated. Okay. All right. Well, let's find out. A few months ago, I was involved in a hit and run accident. My car was totaled and the driver who hit me didn't have insurance. How would you know that if it was a hit and run? Anyway, it was one of those nightmare scenarios. I don't know. Am I wrong for that? Am I wrong for that? How would you know that?
I think you're thinking of it intuitively, but typically what happens is maybe he got caught later, like the damage was seen and he got caught later and then they found out. So he probably went to jail, but he had no insurance. That's funny though. Yeah. So this actually happened to me. This happened to me where I got into a car crash, not a hit and run, but I got hit by a car, destroyed my wife's car at the time. Had no insurance, no driver's license, no registration on the vehicle.
No driver's license?
This was the kind of, so I kind of get where you're coming from and I understand why his insurance is heightened, because one thing that people don't know is your insurance premiums can go up even if you're the victim of a hit and run or something like that. It's all based off statistics and the law of large numbers. There are some insurance places that won't raise it if you got hit, but majority of them will still raise it. I still think 300 is crazy though. So there's probably more behind all this.
No, 300 is absolutely absurd. That's wild numbers. Absolutely crazy. So I was one of those nightmare scenarios. No way to recover the damages, no insurance claim to lean on. My dad advised me to sue. My dad advised me against suing, the other driver because it just wasn't worth the legal hassle. Well, I don't know.
To be fair, I've had that same situation. And if you have someone who's uninsured, no registration on their vehicle, my attorney also made the same exact thing of like, you could pursue them, but the amount of money you're going to pay in attorney fees, you're not going to be able to recoup. Because if someone's driving around uninsured, unregistered, all of these things, they probably don't have anything for you to go after.
Yeah.
But again, it's dependent situation. Like it depends on the situation. Maybe there's a multimillionaire driving their Bugatti around, which is like, I don't like paying insurance for whatever reason, and decides to smash you. That's an ideal situation.
Yeah. Exactly. Or maybe there's like it's like a psychological trick. It's like I'm gonna drive around with no insurance, illegal. And that way if I do get into a crash, they don't think I have anything because I'm so poor. So when in actuality I'm just rich and a cheapskate and breaking the law.
Yeah, I mean, you're really setting yourself up for some liability there and probably jail time. But you do you, boo-boo. I don't care.
To each his own. Follow the law. Anyway, with that being said, I had some savings set aside. And after parting out my old car, I managed to scrape together $4,000. That's what I used as a down payment for my Camry. Mm-hmm. Well, at the time, it felt like the best decision I could have made. Isn't that funny how that happens?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy what experience and basically pain will do to you. My siblings even reassured me saying, I got a good deal for someone my age, concerning. But deep down, I wasn't convinced. What did Chris say earlier? Go with your gut. Go with your gut. Go with your gut.
And who's to say that your siblings know what the hell they're talking about?
Yeah. Honestly, though, truthfully, you got to analyze the source and how much experience do they actually have in that source. If it doesn't feel good to you, you got to live with it. They don't have to live with it. So make the right decision for yourself. Right. Now, every time I make that $468 and no cents payment, I think about what else I could have done with that money. Living with my parents helps, but I'm a full-time college student and I work full-time, bringing home about $2,800 a month. Okay. Between the car loan and the insurance, I'm sinking almost 30% of my monthly income into my car, right? And that's not even talking about gas, if it needs new tires, maintenance, stuff like that.
Hopefully not if it's 2024, but I mean, he could be running it hard.
Yeah. But I mean, gas alone, it's a Camry, so it's pretty good on gas, But
I mean, my thought process is what happens when he moves out of his parents' house? What happens if he gets a girlfriend, something like that? 30% of your money is going just to the car. I mean, there's no specific rules in finance, but a good rule is 50% should go towards necessities.
Yeah.
Well, 30% of it's already getting eaten up before anything. Like, what money are you going to do to pay for rent,
food,
and
girlfriend,
stuff,
wife? Yeah, one or the other, not both. First of all, all right. So let's see. Yeah, that's a tough situation to be in. That is a tough situation to be in. That's for sure.
You're stuck. You're at the worst part.
Yeah. So living with your parents help, but like they said, full-time college student, they're bringing home $2,800 a month. Between the car loan and the insurance, I'm sinking almost 30% of my income into my car. And that's the worst part. That's not the worst part. The loan lasts 72 months.
Holy shit. Okay.
Jinkies. That's 6 years of being tied to these payments. 6 years of the interest eating away at my hard-earned money. And 6 years of suffering. That's not the worst part. No, I'm just kidding. We do have another. we do have another part that is quite brutal. I might add, it is quite brutal. So you can't forget these car companies. They're not giving it to you for 0% interest. Most of them. Some of them do, like a Tesla, but some of them do. Most of them don't. Interest rate on this puppy. Is it 5? Is it 10? 12? 13, 14, 15. Will I ever stop? It's 16%. 16% interest rate on this car is brutal. I've tried to calculate how much I'm losing to interest every time I run the numbers. I feel like I've made a massive financial mistake. It's a lot of stress for something that's supposed to get me from point A to point B. I agree. It doesn't sound like this car is serving you anymore. It sounds like you're working to serve the car.
Yep. And I think that's so important. There's in meditations of Marcus Aurelius, there's a point where he goes through and you can like see him talking about the quote unquote necessities of life, the things in life that we all take as like we need these things. And he like looks around and he's like, oh, this chicken is just this food in front of me is a dead chicken. You know, that the house is just a bundle of bricks. You know, all of these things are just the amalgamation of whatever makes them. And he's exactly right in saying the vehicle, its main purpose is to get you from A to B. Doesn't mean you to be MC flexing everywhere you go in the car. If you can, that's wonderful. But the car's main purpose is to get you from point A to point B. And so many people forget that. And they go and they purchase cars, lease cars, get cars more than what they need, more than what serves them in order to impress other people that don't give a shit about them. I'm not saying that's what happened in this situation, but I'm glad to see that he's realizing that like, this car's not serving me. I am serving this car. I am entrapped to this vehicle that I don't even like at this point.
So the next couple paragraphs are entitled What I Wish I Had Done Differently. So maybe the viewer can kind of take something away from this battle story. Looking back, I can see it clearly now. I should have gone with a cheaper car, a cash car. I had enough to get something reliable that wouldn't come with a loan. Sure, it might not have been a 2024 model, but it would have been mine. No monthly payments, no high interest. None of that stuff lingering over my head. My savings could have stayed intact. And I wouldn't be constantly calculating how much of my paycheck is going into this car. I've talked a lot with my siblings about this, and while I still think I got a decent deal for my age, I can't help but feel like I got ripped off. Yes, the car's nice. Yeah, I'm young, and building credit is important, but is it worth it? I'm not so sure. At this point, I'm trying to focus on what's next. I started exploring ways to refinance my loan to bring down the interest rate, or possibly sell the car to get out from underneath the payments. It's not easy, but I'm learning. If nothing else, this experience has taught me a lot about money, choices, and the impact of rushing big decisions. I'm hoping that by sharing my story, someone else might think twice before jumping into a car loan like I did. The stress isn't worth it. Stress isn't worth it, and there's always other options. From 6 years of payments, feels like a trap. Wish I'd bought a car without the financial gap.
Boy, 6 years at 16% interest rate for a 2024 Toyota Camry. I hope he at least got the limited package.
Oh man, that's brutal. That's brutal. One thing that kind of cracked me up just a little bit was the older sibling saying that you got a good deal for your age. It's like, thanks for nothing. That means absolutely nothing, right? It doesn't matter if it's a good deal or not, if it's not a good fit, right? Now, the car might be a right fit, right? The car itself, the physical thing that gets them to point A to point B, might check all the boxes, but it doesn't check, is it stress-free, right? Can I afford it, right? Is this a good long-term strategy? Because let's be honest, like, okay, after the 6 years, car's paid off. Well, now what? Remember we talked about earlier in the pod how it's important to have a goal, but understand what comes after the goal, right? Are you going to keep that car till the wheels fall off? You know, those Camrys, man, they last for like 20 years. Are you okay with keeping that for 20 years? Would you feel guilty of in 8 years getting rid of it? Just jumping right back into the payments? There's so much to think about here, but I'm curious to see what you have to say about it, Chris.
Yeah. One thing that I kind of thought was funny was like I had $4,000. I could have bought a used car. Like you're not going to buy a used car for $1,000. That would have been yours. That I don't think so. At least you probably could have bought a car for $4,000, but it would have not got you from point A to point B. Not in this current market. But you know,
I got to push back on you a little bit. I would say it's nearly impossible to find something for that cheap that is reliable. That being said, I drove across country in a $3,500 vehicle, and it was a breeze. It was nice.
was that recently? When was that?
Recently, this was
Okay.
last summer, right? Bought it off of a relative who no longer wishes to drive anymore because they're getting up there in age, and we help them out a lot, and they wanted to give us a nice deal on it. To be honest, truthfully, they were going to sell it for cheaper, and we said no, that's ridiculous. We'll give it to you for this price. And that's all that they wanted. That's all that they're like, no, they didn't want us to, they're like, that's too much, right? I definitely recommend buying something from old people. They take care of their cars. They get those oil changes done. And sometimes you can find great deals. 4,000, like Chris said. Are you going to find it on Carfax? Definitely not. Are you going to find it on, like Carvana? No, you're not going to find anything for $4,000 on Carvana. This is the type of stuff I'm talking about is literally like the newspaper in the old people section, right? We're talking to your relatives, right? Talking about that, right? For 4,000, you're not, like Chris said, you're not going to find anything for 4,000. But you can go make a deal happen. It depends on how you want to,
How much work are you going to put into finding and sourcing this deal?
Exactly.
Which, I mean, hey, if you look at it as like the time value of money, that could be freaking worth it to put in all that time to not be stuck with a 16% loan for the next 6 years.
Yeah. And $700, $768 a month, right? So maybe that's worth it to you. I mean, kind of is, having a car with no payments is nice. Speaking from experience. But yeah, what else do you have on it? I mean, that loan, that 16% of loan is brutal.
Absolutely so first brutal. Off, I'm gonna say 16% is a credit card level loan for 6 years is absolutely freaking horrible. Like there's no better way to put it than this. This is atrocious. That your parents like let you sign for this. That like no one came in and stopped you, and that your siblings are like, no, bro, you got a really good one. Like I don't know, are you 14 years old? Like that. This seems criminal to me that happened to you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm laughing. Like it's so bad. Yeah. If we calculate this out, so you're paying $468 for the vehicle. Yeah. You're paying $400 for the insurance for 72 months. Yeah. Right? That's $55,000 going to this vehicle over the next 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, let's say that you're going to have to pay the insurance regardless. So maybe we can lower the insurance a little bit by like getting a car that isn't so expensive. But on the vehicle alone, you're spending around $34,000 for this vehicle over the next 6 years, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know how much 2024 Camry goes for. Maybe it is $34,000. Maybe it is. But at your age and your income, can you afford that? And based off what you're saying, it sounds like even if you could afford that, you're not willing to afford that because of all the other sacrifices. We have to run it through the gut check. You have to run it through the sleep well at night check. And right now, it seems like both those things for you is like, this is killing me.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. What's your relationship with your siblings? Like, do they hate you or like, what's the deal there? No, I'm just kidding. I hope they love you. But what situation are they in? Right? We talk a lot about taking advice on the podcast, right? We're here to teach. We're here to learn and we're here to teach, right? And if you're taking advice from, let's say your siblings, right? Well, I'm not even going to give you guys as an example, right? If you're getting fitness advice from someone who's overweight, you shouldn't take their advice, right? Doesn't make any sense. Are they knowledgeable? Maybe, but why aren't they using their knowledge, right? So my kind of compass, if you will, filter, probably a better way to put it, of taking advice from someone is, do I want their life? Do I want a life like theirs? would I take their advice? If I took their advice and it would get me closer to their life, would I be okay with that? Right? Maybe your siblings have 2 car payments, right, and a wife and kids, and they're cool with that. They like that. They like the stress of $800 eating away every month. That's just not for me, you know. So I would also just stand guard at the entrance of your mind and be careful what information you take in, and be careful the source.
Yeah. I think that's important because you're the one who has to live with it, right?
Yeah.
So in this situation, if I was you,
Mhm.
I would see if your parents are willing to help you make payments on the vehicle currently, would they be willing to help you co-sign? Because if you can maybe co-sign the vehicle with them, like refinance it with them and their ideally, hopefully better credit scores and age and income history, is there a way we can take this 16% interest down to, I don't know, 11, 10, 9, 7, try to half it. And if you can, if your parents are willing to do that, and we can refinance this for maybe half of the rate, I would do that shit ASAP. Because this 16% interest rate is, yes, you're exactly right. It is eating away at you. At 16%, if you don't make a payment, that means that payment will double every roughly 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
That has to do with the rule of 72, correct?
Rule of 72, but we do it backwards for it's because normally it's about how fast does it take for your money to double, but it can also be used for how fast does it take for your interest to double.
Yeah,
so imagine if you had an investment that returns 16% per year. You'd be like, oh, hell yeah, I want that.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
So yeah, the insurance or the loan company, they have an investment that's returning 16% per year. You're that investment. Do you want to be that investment?
Yeah, that's it.
So if you talk to your parents and they're like, no, we're not going to refinance with you with the vehicle, and like that's not an option for whatever reason, can you sell the car?
Yeah.
If you could sell the car, how much cash can you get the car? If you sell the car and you get the cash for it, is that enough to buy a new and dependable car with cash? Because if we get rid of this new car, let's just think about this for a second. And we get a car that's maybe not as dependable. It's not a 2024 Camry. I get that. Great car. We get a car that's maybe a bit of a POS. But if you get stuck now with an old car, your family is still around. You still live with them in their household. They can come pick you up. You can borrow a car from them. You have Uber. You have all of these other things that you have the options to do that if you stick to this and you were out on your own, maybe we'd be in a different situation where like we really need a dependable car because if something goes wrong, like I'm done. But that's not the situation that from what I'm reading or from what Dominic read, seems like you're in.
I would also say that since you're living at home, you're going to college, right? Now, and you have a full-time job, right? Now is the time to stack up as much money as you can. It'll never be cheaper for you than it is right now, in theory. So yeah, I'm with Chris on that. Get a beater if you know that's a bad car, POS car, right? Save as much money as you can right now, because once you leave college, you're gonna want to move out, right? And then you're gonna get a hit in the face with how expensive that is, right? And you're gonna wish that you would have saved up more. So I would definitely keep your expenses as low as humanly possible, and then reduce it by 5%, right? So you don't need a super expensive car right now. And even if you had enough money to pay for it and it was like no problem, right? You're still stressed about the car. And like, why would you keep something around that's keeping you an anxiety-filled, stress-filled way of life? I mean, you already have full college, right? And you have a full-time job. That's enough on its own. So I just don't think you need any more added stress. I don't know. Maybe you're a masochist. I don't know. But that's my take.
I would agree with that. And I really think that like, yes, if you do sell the car, it's going to hurt. And like, you're going to lose money on this deal. 1000%.
Yeah.
So look at this as something 20 years in the future. When you look back on this, I don't know how old you are. Maybe you're 18 years old, 20 years old. When you're 40 years old, 38 years old, when you look back at this, you'll be like, thank God I went through that. Because now I know to never put myself in that situation. And how lucky are you that you get to have it at this point in your life, when you still have parents that you could depend on, when you still have a roof over your head, when you're not trying to care for kids and a spouse and all these other things. So learn from this mistake. It is okay to be wrong. It is not okay to stay wrong. You can make mistakes at any point in life, but we need to learn from them, fix it, and don't do it again. This is your moment to learn more about financial literacy, to make sure you don't put yourself into this situation, to maybe learn that while people may have the best of intentions when giving you recommendations, they might not know for themselves. And even if they do know it for themselves, they're not the ones that have to live with that. So this is all moments that you get to learn from to not make this mistake again. So try to look at it as a blessing as much as you possibly can. Rewire the perspective. I know it's going to be hard. Yes, this sucks. Objectively, it sucks. You got hit. All these things were not your fault. But it is up to you to choose how you decide to react to them. You can't change what happened. You can only change how you show up.
100%. With that being said, best of luck. Now we move on to our final segment of today's podcast, to this week's podcast. So that would be win of the week. Kind of help and a little bit of a happier note. Sometimes the win of the weeks, sometimes the viewer mailbags are a little bit somber. So we throw this in, kind of end on a good note. So Chris, what is your win of the week? A real tearjerker, possibly?
No, it's not too much of a tearjerker. It's kind of funny, actually. So my win of the week, we were coming to the close of the week. So this happened literally last night. So I was like, whoa, got one in under the wire.
Yeah.
So recently, called my dog, he tore his ACL. So he's not allowed to go on bike rides right now, but he's such a high energy dog that I have to take him out on walks or he'll just destroy my house. So we go on a little walk around the neighborhood. There's a nice little walking path that's like not too far down the street. So I'm walking with Call last night and we're walking down this path and it's, probably 100 yards or so from the street. And way ahead of me, probably like 300 yards ahead of me, I see a dog with no leash on, like kind of running, like kind of like jogging towards us. And on this path, like people walk with their dogs off leash all the time. I didn't see an owner in the moment, but I was like, maybe there's an owner behind him somewhere. But my dog's on a leash, this dog's off a leash. If you know anything about dogs, if there's a dog on a leash and a dog off a leash, they're going to get in a fight because the dog on the leash feels like trapped, that he can't move, and the dog on the leash doesn't understand that he's about to get attacked. And Call is a big pit bull who is very loving and won't attack anybody, but other owners see him, they're like, that dog's a fighting dog. If you know him, he's not, but I understand the perspective. So I saw this dog coming. I didn't see an owner. So I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut through the bushes here on the left and we'll just walk out towards the street. And then I'll walk like 100 yards and I'll cut back in and then walk back on this path. So cut through the bushes. We're near the street and I'm walking with Call and I hear this pitter patter behind me. And I'm like, oh, mother effer. Turn around and here's this big old lab like lumbering towards me, all happy as can be. Luckily, like I look at his body language, like he looks happy. He looks like he's not going to attack or anything. Yeah. But he comes like right between Call and I, and like he's trying to like get pets and stuff. And now Call's like wants to play with him. So I'm like, who's your owner? What's going on? And I'm trying to look around for an owner and figure out this whole situation as to what's going on. And there's no one around. It's just this dog, no collar, no leash, no nothing.
Oof.
And now like my dog Call is like freaking out because he wants to play with the dog. The dog wants to play with Call. And like, this is not a situation that I want to find myself in. So I'm like, hey, Call, like dog, I don't know what his name is. I'm like, go home. Like wherever your home is, like, just please go home. Yeah. So he turns around and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he knows where his home is. He runs directly into the street and there's like a car coming. So I have to run to the street with my dog now and like stop this car. And now like the lady gets out. She's like, whose dog is this? And I'm like, it's not my dog. My dog's right here attached to me on a leash. I'm like, do you know whose dog this is? And she's like, no. So she gets in the car and just like leaves. She's not going to deal with this. So now I'm like, now I have to deal with this. Yeah. So I lure the dog to like follow me back onto the path away from the street because this dog clearly doesn't know what cars are. And now he's like following me home and like Call wants to play with him. And he's like maybe like 15 yards behind me, like just following us. So we basically walk back to my street. Luckily, one of my neighbors sees me with this dog that's like following me. I'm like, hey, have you ever seen this dog? He's like, no, I've never seen it. I'm like, okay, cool. Can you at least hold this dog for a second? Let me go put my dog back. I'll come back and we'll figure out what to do with this dog. Mm-hmm. And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So he holds the dog. I go and put Call back. I come back with a cinch lead. The cinch lead, we like get the dog, put a leash on him. And now at least he's safe from getting himself killed. Yeah. So I asked the neighbor, I'm like, hey, have you ever seen this dog? No. We see another neighbor, like, have you ever seen this dog? And this neighbor's like, yeah, I think I actually have. I think it's this neighbor over here. So me and my neighbor are like, well, let's go and we'll walk over there, knock on the door, see if it's the dog. Knock on the door. We knock on the door. You hear a dog barking inside. So it's clearly not this dog that we're with.
Mm-hmm.
They open the door and they're like, that's not my dog, but I think it's this person's dog. So we end up going to like 6 or 7 different houses of everyone pointing us to different houses, right? Eventually we finally get to one of the last houses and someone's like, that's not my dog. And I don't know whose dog it is. Like, I'll post it on Nextdoor. And what we can do is call animal control if worst comes to worst. Cause at this point it's like 7 o'clock. Like it's getting late.
Yeah.
And like, this is like, now I'm like 2 hours into this damn ordeal with like this dog.
Yeah.
So when we're out there, there's this little girl across the street who's playing in her front yard with like a wagon and stuff. And she sees us with this dog. And then the guy we're talking with is like, let's go check with this guy who's right over here with the little girls running inside the front. Like, I know he has a lab too. So we walk over there. We walk up to the little girl who's playing in her front yard. We're like, hey, sweetie, is this your dog? And the little girl just stops and like stares at us. It doesn't say anything. She just keeps staring at us. And we're like, oh, okay. My thought process is like, maybe she's been told not to talk to strangers. Like, this is a really smart little girl.
Smart girl.
Like, this is smart. And then eventually there's 3 guys standing out front of this guy's house and like they're holding a dog. So eventually the dad opens the door. He's like, oh, hey guys, what's up? And we're like, is this your dog? And the guy looks and goes, that is my dog. And the little girl goes, and she makes a face and like turns around. So my thought process is the little girl saw that we had her dog.
Yeah.
She knew she was going to get in trouble for accidentally letting the dog out. So she was trying to come up with a story as to what can I tell my dad that I didn't lose the dog. So luckily the guy comes out and he's like, that's my dog. He's like, where'd you find him? And we told the whole story. And he's like, thank you so much. Brings it back inside, brings the little girl inside. I'm sure to yell at her or like, tell her you need to be more cautious with the dog and not. She saw us with the dog across the street and didn't say jack about it. Like for like 10 or 15 minutes of us trying to figure out what to do with this dog, she was watching like, I hope they don't come here. So
what an evil little girl.
That's my win of the week. I didn't just let a dog get run over by a car. We spent some time to fix it. And my hope is that if that ever happens to me and one of my dog gets out, that someone would take the time to walk around and try to figure out where does this dog belong?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, it would be kind of smart to put like, how every house has like a front window, put like a picture of like like all your dogs like right in the window in case they ever get out and be like, oh, okay, they got a black lab over here. They got the pit bull over here. Okay. Oh no. Interesting. That's a great story. That is a great win of the week. Oh, that's awesome. That's so funny. And of course he got it with Call. Like I'm sure he just was like so happy to see like another dog.
Yep.
Gosh, how's he doing? How's the leg?
Oh, he's doing good. He's not limping too much as long as I don't run him. So that's what we do a very nice brisk walk, which is nice for me. Get my little time out of the house. But yeah, he's doing great. He's very happy.
That's awesome. Well, my win of the week is not as much, and it's not as good. Chris has always got the better win of the weeks, but this week I got a pretty good one as well. So when I first moved into this house, I wanted to do something in the backyard to kind of spice it up. If you've ever been in the desert, you know that it's pretty boring out here sometimes. So I wanted to make my backyard a place where I kind of want to be, right? So we built a lattice to kind of help with the sun and make it look more pretty back there. We got a beautiful table in the backyard. I got a barbecue. I got a grill back there. Got a dartboard back there that I bring out when I want to play darts with the friends. And we built this beautiful garden structure. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to go about painting it, right? I was thinking maybe I should do like an oil stainer so that I could still see some of the wood. And I really wasn't really sure. And fate had it to where I got a gallon of this really nice paint. And it was perfect for what I was using it for. A little bit darker than I wanted. But again, I didn't know what I wanted, right? So I decided to buy some supplies, prime it up, sand it, do all the regular stuff. I threw some paint on it. And, I really like it. I just put the second coat on. I just did some more touch up on it this morning because I was doing it late last night. Actually, normally for my live streams, I will do like gaming content and stuff like that. And I was like, I got home. I was like, I really don't want to do any gaming content. Like, I just want to go home and paint. So I turned on my camera and we went outside and it was a really great stream. There was like 20 people there. So that was pretty good for me. And it was fun. It was cool. We painted for like 2-3 hours. And I plan on, not today, probably not today, looking at the time, but sometime later in the next few days, I'm going to put the second coat on and probably write some lettering on it. It's real cute, really cool. And yeah, I'm really excited about how it's turning out. So that's my win of the week. Little house
Wonderful.
project.
Good. I'm glad that you're having fun in making the house your own. And with that, guys, we're going to close out our 5 Friday feedback. If you've gotten value, if you're still sticking around, you're not subscribed. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Subscribe. Leave up to a 5-star review if you are listening just on audio only. We really love your feedback. Let us know. If you ever want to get featured on 5 Friday feedback, you can always do that by going to thefiguys.com. There's a Get Featured on 5 Friday feedback tab right there on the homepage. Click that. Put as much detail as you possibly want. We want to continue to give back to this community. So if you've liked us thus far, which I'm sure if you're still listening, you at least kind of like us a little bit, please share us with one friend, one family member, someone that you want to see get on the path to financial independence, someone that you want to be better financially healthy, someone who you want to make sure that they set up 2025 to be the best fiscal year of their life.
Absolutely. That being said, guys, hope you guys have an amazing week, amazing weekend, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Later. This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.